The Wusun were an Indo-European semi-nomadic steppe people mentioned in Chinese records from the 2nd century BC to the 5th century AD. The Wusun originally lived between the Qilian Mountains and Dunhuang near the Yuezhi. Around 176 BC the Yuezhi were raided by the Xiongnu, subsequently attacking the Wusun, killing the king and seizing the land. The Wusun prince was subsequently adopted by the Xiongnu ruler and made a Xiongnu general and leader of the Wusun. After the Yuezhi around 162 BC were driven into the Ili valley of Xiongnu, Dzungaria and Tianshan formerly inhabited by the Sai, the Wusun resettled Gansu as vassals of the Xiongnu. In 133–132 BC, the Wusun drove the Yuezhi from the Ili Valley and settled the area. They subsequently became close allies of the Han dynasty and a powerful force in the region for several centuries. Pressured by the Rouran, the Wusun are last mentioned by the Chinese as having settled the Pamir Mountains in the 5th century AD. They possibly became subsumed into the later Hephtalites. Etymology: Wusun is a modern pronunciation of the Chinese characters. The Chinese name literally means wu, crow, raven, plus son, grandson, descendant. There are several theories about the origin of the name. Sinologist Victor H. Mayer compared Wusun with Sanskrit asva horse, Asavan mare, and Lithuanian asva mare. The name would thus mean the horse people. Hence he put forward the hypothesis that the Wusun used a centum-like language within the Indo-European languages. However, the latter hypothesis is not supported by Edwin G. Pulley-Blank. Christopher I. Beckworth makes a similar analysis to Mayer, reconstructing Chinese term Wusun to the Old Chinese *Aswin, which he compares to the Old Indic Asvan, the horsemen, the name of the Rigvedic twin equestrian gods. History. Early history. The Wusun are first mentioned by Chinese sources as vassals of the Yuezhi living between the Qilian Mountains and Dunhuang, although different locations however have been suggested for these toponyms. Beckworth suggests that the Wusun were an eastern remnant of the Indo-Aryans, who had been suddenly pushed to the extremities of the Eurasian steppe by the Iranian peoples in the 2nd millennium BC. Around 210–200 BC, Prince Modu Chani, a former hostage of the Yuezhi and prince of the Xiongnu, who were also vassals of the Yuezhi, became leader of the Xiongnu and conquered the Mongolian plain, subjugating several peoples. Around 176 BC Modu Chani launched a fierce raid against the Yuezhi. Around 173 BC, the Yuezhi subsequently attacked the Wusun, at that time a small nation, killing the king Nandumi. According to legend, Nandumi's infant son Liaomi was left in the wild. He was miraculously saved from hunger, being suckled by a she-wolf, and fed meat by ravens. The Wusun ancestor myth shares striking similarities with those of the Hittites, the Zhou-Chinese, the Scythians, the Romans, the Goguryeo Turks, Mongols and Dzungas. Based on the similarities between the ancestor myth of the Wusun and later Turkic peoples, Denis Sinner has suggested that the Wusun and Sogdians could represent an Indo-European Iranian influence, or even origin of the royal Ashina Turks. In 162 BC, the Yuezhi were finally defeated by the Xiongnu, after which they fled Gansu. According to Zhang Qian, the Yuezhi were defeated by the rising Xiongnu Empire and fled westward, driving away the Sai from the Ili Valley in the Xiongnu and Dzungaria area. The Sai would subsequently migrate into South Asia, where they founded various Indo-Scythian kingdoms. After the Yuezhi retreat, the Wusun subsequently settled the modern province of Gansu, in the valley of the Ushuihi, as vassals of the Xiongnu. It is not clear whether the river was named after the tribe or vice versa. Migration to the Ili Valley. The Xiongnu ruler was impressed with Liaomi, considering him a supernatural being, and adopted the child. When the child grew up, the Chani made him leader of the Wusun and a Xiongnu general. He won many victories for the Xiongnu and the Wusun became powerful. Liaomi constantly requested the Xiongnu ruler for permission to revenge his father, and around 133–132 BC, he successfully attacked the Yuezhi in the Ili Valley. The Yuezhi then migrated to Sogdia and then Bactria, where they became unified under Kujaluk advices and expanded into South Asia, founding the Kushan Empire, which at its peak under Kanishka stretched from Turpine in the Tarim Basin to Pataliputra on the Gangetic Plain and played an important role in the development of the Silk Road and the transmission of Buddhism to China. The Wusun subsequently took over the Ili Valley, expanding over a large area and trying to keep away from the Xiongnu. According to Shiji, Wusun was a state located west of the Xiongnu. When the Xiongnu ruler died, Liaomi refused to serve the Xiongnu. The Xiongnu then sent a force against the Wusun but were defeated, after which the Xiongnu even more than before considered Liaomi a supernatural being, avoiding conflict with him, establishing relations with the Han. After settling in the Ili Valley, the Wusun became so strong that the Han was compelled to win the friendship in alliance. Chinese sources name the Scythian Sai and the Yuezhi, who are often identified as Tocharians. Among the people of the Wusun stayed in the Jadisu and Dzungaria area. The Wusun realm probably included both Yuezhi and Saka. It is clear that the majority of the population consisted of linguistically Iranian Saka tribes. In 125 BC, under the Han Emperor Wu of Han, the Chinese traveler and diplomat Zhang Qian was sent to establish an alliance with the Wusun against the Xiongnu. Qian estimated the Wusun to number 630,000, with 120,000 families and 188,000 men capable of bearing arms. Han Xu described them as occupying land that previously belonged to the Saka. To the northwest, the Wusun bordered Kangju, located in modern Kazakhstan. To the west was Daywan, and to the south were various city-states. The royal court of the Wusun, the walled city of Qigu, was located in a side valley leading to Isikul. Lying on one of the branches of the Silk Road, Qigu was an important trading center, but its exact location has not been established. The Wusun approved of a possible alliance and Zhang Qian was sent as ambassador in 115 BC. According to the agreement, the Wusun would jointly attack the Xiongnu with the Han, while they were offered a Han princess in marriage and the return of their original Gansu homeland. Due to fear of the Xiongnu, the Wusun, however, reached second thoughts, and suggested sending a delegation to the Han rather than moving the capital further west. The Wusun as Han allies. Some time after the Han-Wusun negotiations had ended, the Han were however able to independently inflict severe defeats upon the Xiongnu. The Han then threatened war upon the Wusun, after which Liaomi finally agreed to an alliance, sending tributary horses and accepting Princess Zijin as his wife. Along with the Yuezhi and the Kangju of the Fergana Valley, the Wusun became the main suppliers of horses for the Han. The Xiongnu had however also sent a princess to marry Liaomi, and the Xiongnu princess was declared his senior consort, with Zijin becoming his junior wife. Since Liaomi was already an old man, Zijin was however married to his successor Chenza, to which Wu agreed. Zijin wrote a famous poem, the Baikoga, in which she complains about her exile in the land of the barbarians. "My family sent me off to be married on the other side of heaven. They sent me a long way to a strange land, to the king of Wusun. A domed lodging is my dwelling place with walls of felt. Meat is my food, with fermented milk as the sauce. I live with constant thoughts of my home, my heart is full of sorrow. I wish I were a golden swan, returning to my home country. Zijin bore the Wusun a daughter but died soon afterward, at which point the Han court sent Princess Jiayu to succeed her. After the death of Chenzo, Jiayu married Wang Weimi, the latter's cousin and successor. Jiayu lived for 50 years among the Wusun and bore 5 children, including the oldest Yuan Gimi, whose half-brother Wuji-Utu was born to a Xiongnu mother. She sent numerous letters to the Han requesting assistance against the Xiongnu. Around 80 BC, the Wusun were attacked by the Xiongnu, who inflicted a devastating defeat upon them. In 72 BC, the Kunmi of the Wusun requested assistance from the Han against the Xiongnu. The Han sent an army of 160,000 men, inflicting a crushing defeat upon the Xiongnu, capturing much booty and many slaves. In the campaign, the Han captured the Tarim Basin city-state of Cheshi, a previous ally of the Xiongnu, giving them direct contact with the Wusun. Afterwards, the Wusun allied with the Dingling and Wuhuan to counter Xiongnu attacks. After the crushing victory against the Xiongnu, the Wusun increased in strength, achieving significant influence over the city-states of the Tarim Basin. The son of the Kunmi became the ruler of Yarkand, while his daughter became the wife of the Lord of Kucha. They came to play a role as a third force between the Han and the Xiongnu. Around 64 BC, according to Hanxu accounts, Chinese agents were involved in a plot with the Wusun Kunmi known as Wang Weimi, to kill a Wusun Kunmi known to the Chinese as Nimi. A Chinese deputy envoy called Kai Tu, who brought a doctor to attend to Nimi, was punished by castration when he returned to China. In 64 BC, another Han princess was sent to Kunmi Wang Weimi, but he died before her arrival. The Wusun died. Han Emperor Shan then permitted the princess to return, since Jiayu had married the new Kunmi, Nimi, the son of Chenzo. Jiayu bore Nimi the son Chimi. Prince Wuji-Utu later killed Nimi, his half-brother. Fearing the wrath of the Han, Wuji-Utu adopted the title of Lesser Kunmi, while Yuan Gimi was given the title Greater Kunmi. The Han accepted this system and bestowed both of them with the imperial seal. After both Yuan Gimi and Chimi were dead, Jiayu asked Emperor Shan for permission to return to China. She died in 49 BC. Over the next decades, the institution of Greater and Lesser Kunmi continued, with the Lesser Kunmi being married to a Xiongnu princess and the Greater Kunmi married to a Han princess. In 05 BCE, during the reign of Uchjulu Chani, the Wusun attempted to raid Chuban pastures, but Uchjulu Chani repulsed them, and the Wusun commander had to send his son to the Chuban court as a hostage. The forceful intervention of the Chinese usurper Wang Mang and internal strife brought disorder, and in 02 BC one of the Wusun chieftains brought 80,000 Wusun to Kangju, asking for help against the Chinese. In a vain attempt to reconcile with China, he was duped and killed in 03 CE. In 02 CE, Wang Mang issued a list of 4 regulations to the allied Xiongnu to the taking of any hostages from Chinese vassals, i.e. Wusun, Wuhuan and the statelets of the western regions, would not be tolerated. In 74 AD, the Wusun are recorded as having sent tribute to the Han military commanders in Cheshi. In 80 AD, Ban Chao requested assistance from the Wusun against the city-state Kuchi in the Tarim Basin. The Wusun were subsequently rewarded with silks, while diplomatic exchanges were resumed. During the 2nd century AD, the Wusun continued their decline in political importance. Later history. In the 5th century, the Wusun were pressured by the Rouran and may have migrated to the Pamir Mountains. They are last mentioned in Chinese historical sources in 436 CE, when a Chinese envoy was sent to the country and the Wusun reciprocated. It is possible that they became subsumed into the later Hephtalites. After this event, the Wusun seemed to disappear from Chinese records, though the name was last mentioned on an offering to the court of Liao dynasty on September 22, 938. Physical appearance. The evidence from ancient Chinese texts on the appearance of the Wusun is contradictory. Hanxu and Shiji, which mentioned the Wusun, did not note any unusual ethnic appearance of the Wusun. The actual first description of Wusun may be found in a Western Han Dynasty book of divination, the Jiao Shi Yilin, where the Wusun women were described as ugly and dark-colored people with deep eye sockets, and the reported dark skin complexion may suggest South Asian origin. However, a very brief pejorative quote from an ancient book of divination may not be a reliable source for determining ethnic characteristics. A later 7th century commentary to the Hanxu by Yan Shigu, which is probably based on an earlier source, says, "Among the barbarians in the western regions, the look of the Wusun is the most unusual. The present barbarians who have green eyes and red hair, and look like macaque monkeys, are the offspring of this people." Initially, when only a few number of skulls from Wusun territory were known, the Wusun were recognized as Indo-European people with slight Mongoloid admixture. Later, in a more thorough study by Soviet archaeologists of 87 skulls of Shetisu, the 6 skulls of the Wusun period were determined to be purely European or close to it. Language. The Wusun are generally believed to have been an Indo-European speaking people. They are thought to be Iranian-speaking by the archaeologist Elena Kuzmina, linguist Janos Harmata, Joseph Kitagawa, David.Around, Turkologist Peter B. Golden, and Central Asian scholar Denis Sinha. The sinologist Edwin G. Pulley-Blank has suggested that the Wusun, along with the Yuezhi, the Dayuan, the Kangju and the people of Yanqi, could have been Tocharian-speaking. Colin Massacre and David Keatley also suggest that the Wusun were Tocharian-speaking. Sinha finds it difficult to include the Wusun within the Tocharian category of Indo-European until further research. Indo-Europeanist J. P. Mallory has suggested that the Wusun contained both Tocharian and Iranian elements. Central Asian scholar Christopher I. Beckworth suggests that the Wusun were Indo-Aryan speaking. The first syllable of the Wusun royal title Kunmi was probably the royal title, while the second syllable referred to the royal family name. Beckworth specifically suggests an Indo-Aryan etymology of the title Kunmi. Some scholars historically suggested that the Wusun spoke a Proto-Turkic language. Chinese scholar Han Rulan, as well as G. Vambury, A. Sherbak, P. Budberg, L. Bazin and V. P. Yudan, noted that the Wusun king's name Fuli, as reported in Chinese sources and translated as wolf, resembles Proto-Turkic *biru, wolf. This suggestion, however, is rejected by classical Chinese literature expert Francis K. H. So, professor at National Sun Yat-sen University. Other words listed by these scholars include the title beg, lord. The above-mentioned theories have been criticized by modern Turkologists, including Peter B. Golden and Carter V. Findlay, who explain that none of the mentioned words are actually Turkic in origin. Carter v. Findlay notes that the term Bori is probably derived from one of the Indo-European Iranian languages of Central Asia, while the title Beg is certainly derived from the Sogdian Barga, lord, a cognate of Middle Persian Bargama, as well as Sanskrit Barga and Russian Bog. Economy. According to the Shiji and the Hansu, a daughter from the Han prince Lu Jian was sent to the ruler of the Wusun between 110 BCE and 105 BCE. She describes them as nomads who lived in felt tents, ate raw meat and drank fermented mare's milk. Some early Chinese descriptions of the people were pejorative, describing them as bad, greedy and unreliable, and much given to robbery. But the state was also described as very strong. However, the Wusun were also noted for the harmony towards the neighbors, even though they were constantly raided by the Xiongnu and Kangju. The principal activity of the Wusun was cattle raising, but they also practiced agriculture. Since the climate of Shetisu and Dzungaria did not allow constant wandering, they probably wandered with each change of season in the search of pasture and water. Numerous archaeological finds have found querns and agricultural implements and bones of domesticated animals, suggesting a semi-nomadic pastoral economy. Social structure. The social structure of the Wusun resembled that of the Xiongnu. They were governed by the Great Kunmi, whose power was hereditary. The Great Kunmi and his two sons, who commanded the east and left flanks of the Wusun realm, each commanded a force of 10,000 men. The Wusun also fielded a regular army, with each freeman being considered a warrior. Their administrative apparatus was fairly sophisticated, consisting of 16 officials. The Great Kunmi was assisted by a council of elders, which limited his power to some degree. The Wusun elite maintained itself through tribute from conquered tribes, war booty and trading profits. The booty acquired by the Wusun in the frequent conflicts enabled the administrative elite and members of the Kunmi's guard to amass enormous riches. Wusun society seems to have been highly stratified. The main source of this stratification seems to have been property ownership. The wealthiest Wusuns are believed to have owned as many as 4,000 to 5,000 horses, and there is evidence pointing to privileged use of certain pastures, typical of early patriarchal stratified societies. Wusun widows were obliged to remain within the family of the late husband by marrying one of his relatives. Y.A. Zadneprovsky writes that the social inequality among the Wusun created social unrest among the lower strata. Wusun society also included many slaves, mostly prisoners of war. The Wusun are reported as having captured 10,000 slaves in a raid against the Xiongnu. Wusun slaves mainly labored as servants and craftsmen, although the freemen formed the core of the Wusun economy. Archaeology. Numerous sites belonging to the Wusun period in Shetisu and the Tian Shan have been excavated. Most of the cemeteries are burial grounds with the dead interred in pit graves, referred to as the Chilpek group, which probably belong the local Saka population. A second group of kurgans with burials in lined catacomb chamber graves of the so-called AD.The group are found together with the Chilpek tombs from the 2nd century BC to the 5th century AD, and have been attributed to the Yuezhi. Graves of the Wusun period typically contain personal belongings, with the burials of the AD.The group often containing weapons. A famous find is the Kargali burial of a female shaman discovered at an altitude of 2,300 meters near Almaty, containing jewelry, clothing, headdress and nearly 300 gold objects. A beautiful diadem of the Kargali burial attests to the artistic skill of these ancient jewelers. Another find at Tenlik in eastern Shetisu contained the grave of a high-ranking warrior, whose clothing had been decorated with around 100 gold embosses. Connection to Western historiography. Some scholars such as Peter B. Golden have proposed that the Wusun may have been identical with the people described by Herodotus and in Ptolemy's geography as Izduns. Their exact location of the country in Central Asia is unknown. The Izduns are placed by some in western Siberia and by others in Chinese Turkestan, according to E.D. Phillips. French historian Yaroslav Lebedinsky suggests that the Wusun may have been the Yuezhi of Geographica.